Okay, I think we are live after having some fun with some technical things, but we're here and we're ready. We're just gonna make sure to tweet this out so everybody knows. And then we'll wait for people to start showing up so we can start talking, because I have a feeling we are going to have some words.
Well, maybe.
This one is kind of hard, because, yes, we'll get there.
Yeah. Okay. So you tweet it out on my end. How about yours?
Just got it done.
Nice.
So, I guess we can get started if I can stay in frame. Hi guys, it's April and I am here with Shae from Shae Geeks Out. Feel free to say hi down in the chat and hello to everyone who is showing up. Today we are going to be talking about Gilded by Marissa Meyer. So we decided last month that we were going to pick this one up because both Shae and I are avid Marissa Meyer fans, and
especially Lunar Chronicles fans.
Yeah, and we might have done one Rumplestiltskins retelling before. I can't quite remember, but the way this one was sold, it sounded fairly interesting.
Right. Rumplestiltskins retellings are far and few between. We're starting to get a few more now, but there really aren't a ton out there.
Yeah, because, I mean, people usually start with those romantic fairy tales first. And
the romantic classic fairy tales, yeah.
Yeah, and Rumplestiltskins is a darker tale, especially once you think about giving up your firstborn child.
Yeah.
But this is essentially the story of Serilda, who may or may not be blessed by the gods in her birth, and has the tendency to tell a lot of stories. She believes she has a connection to the god of lies and trickery. And through a series of events, she finds herself indebted, enslaved. I don't know how we want to phrase this. Kidnapped.
I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
By the Earl King, who is Fae and wants her to spin straw into gold because she told the tale that she could. And then we have the Rumplestiltskin retelling from there. Shae and I did a buddy read of this, and yeah, I'm going to go over to Shae and hear some of her thoughts, because
well, honestly, like, I kind of blocked a lot of this from my memory after I finished it, if I'm totally and completely honest, because I found it, though it kind of had that dark and moody thing that you want from a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, the rest of it just kind of fell flat for me, which is very not what I'm used to from Marissa Meyer. I mean, I love the Lunar Chronicles, and I loved Heartless. Like, I really love when she comes out of fairy tale. And so when this one started to fall flat, I don't know if it was because she was trying to do something new in being a little bit darker than the others. I couldn't quite tell. But I didn't really love our characters. I just kind of felt frustrated by a lot of this book. And I think that's intentional on Meyer's part, because it is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. People are going to sacrifice things that they shouldn't be sacrificing, and people are going to ask for things that they shouldn't be asking for, and it's all wrapped up in lies, and some of those tropes are things I don't get along well with anyway. And that's kind of why when we buddy read this, we also buddy read it with Lindsay over at Lindsay Tut. I was pretty quiet in our chat when I normally have a lot more to say, and it's because I was so incredibly frustrated as I was reading it. And I don't think that, like I say, I think it was done intentionally. Like, these aren't characters you're supposed to necessarily be rooting for. They're bad people making bad decisions.
Yeah.
So it's one of those where it's just hard.
And I think the main reason I was I didn't put this one down, and the main reason why it was so woven into the story is because I did this one an audiobook.
And I do think the audio would have helped me with this one. I almost picked that up. So I do think I will reread this through the audio to see if I find it more compelling. Yeah, because just reading it was not that enjoyable of an experience for me.
No, because I spent like 6 hours gardening one day, and I just had this audiobook on the whole time. And the way that Serilda was telling the stories while our other character, Gild, was the one actually weaving the gold, I think those were the parts of the story that I really became encaptured by. But there's something about this first book. You can definitely tell they're trying to do a lot to set up the next book. And you don't really get a feel for
You normally have that in like a book 2. Yeah. So I think that was my other struggle, is usually you kind of have a middle book to kind of fill in the gaps that book 1 may not have answered for you, but you can get away with not knowing. Mm-hmm. Where I felt like this was pure setup. Yeah. For what's to come. So I do think the books in the future of this series will be better than this one, but it was still hard because I don't love reading a book this long that's just set up.
Yeah. You know? Well, and it's hard too because there was something very predictable about this whole story, which is really weird because Meyer did a lot of building up of this story that was completely different than the Rumplestiltskin story. But at the same time, the way it was done, you knew almost immediately that the storytelling she was doing was actually connected to the past of the castle she was in and Gild himself. Right away, you could see those connections. And everything else of how things were going to play out. So it wasn't as exciting as it could have been, especially since the Rumpelstiltskin story doesn't have a lot to it in the first place.
But when you think about it that way, the Lunar Chronicles kind of did the same thing. It hit every beat it needed to for each retelling that it was taking, but it was slightly approaching it differently. But you still got all those expected beats in each and every one of them.
Right, but you still had elements that were its own, that were kind of unpredictable, that you didn't see coming. And you don't have that
This one didn't really have that.
Mm-mm. Yeah, because, like I said, immediately you knew how the whole, like, giving up of the child thing was going to play out. And the fact that the cliffhanger, it feels... I get why the cliffhanger is there, and I get why that's where we ended the book. But it doesn't have to be as dramatic as it was played out if a lot of these characters would talk to each other.
Right. And that is ultimately a struggle that I still have with YA right now. It's just that 9 times out of 10 your conflict is going to be not communicating. Mm-hmm. And as a woman in her late 30s, that's starting to get really old really fast.
Yeah.
It's like... all of this would be solved with a conversation. Get everybody in the same room, talk it out, we're done. But that doesn't make for great, like, impactful reading. And granted, this is geared towards a teen. And a lot of this is stuff that they may not want to talk about with other people. So, like, I understand she is writing to her target audience, which isn't me. 20 years ago, I would have been all over this. Not so much these days.
Yeah, because it
so is... I think about it that way. If 20 years ago Shae would have been all over this book, I'm okay with it. Like, and I'm not saying that it's like the worst thing I've ever read.
No.
It's very predictable and slightly forgettable for me. Yeah, which is not typical of a Marissa Meyer for me.
No. It's well written.
Agreed. 10 out of 10.
For sure. It's just something about... somehow these characters fell into an instant love story.
Ugh. Yeah.
Which
feels super weird.
Right, because, I mean, they had so much time together. We could have, like, built it up.
You could have developed it slowly through the whole time.
Right.
It did not have to go from nothing to, like, I'm madly in love with you.
Right, because spoilers, if I haven't said any of that already, we always do spoilers here.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Our main character...
avoid the spoilers here.
Yeah. Our main character, Serilda, and our main character, Gild, obviously end up forming a relationship that actually escalates to a very adult level relatively quickly.
Yeah.
But it's also written in a way that it feels really awkwardly innocent.
Right. It's not necessarily explicit.
Right.
To the point where it's like, okay, you're getting too smutty here. You should be writing for adults. We're not Sarah J. Maas here, but it's pushing that line.
Mm-hmm. And so the child,
for the sake of the story, I understand, but I don't understand why it had to happen so fast.
Yeah, because I mean, we could have pulled. Well, okay.
Clearly, this is going to be more than one book, so we could have drugged this out a little.
I suppose, but I mean,
and maybe your cliffhanger could have been the baby, like
maybe,
we could have done this a little different.
Because the thing with Marissa Meyer, though, the thing with Marissa Meyer, though, is she tends to do the retelling of one story in one book. Mm-hmm. And so it is on that third time that Rumpelstiltskin is offered that child.
Uh-huh.
And the fact that the child exists in the story in the first place. Not that necessarily it is Rumpelstiltskin's child in the actual story, but I kind of like the symmetry of the fact that she offered her child to Gild, and he's receiving it in a way that is born out of love and not out of kidnapping.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I'm okay with the fact that it happened.
Yeah.
It just happened awkwardly and super fast.
Right. So the question is, where do we go from here? Do we stay and play with Rumpelstiltskin a little longer, or do we go into something like King Midas?
Right.
Which it could go that way. We're dealing with gold here.
Yeah, I mean, she's now set to be the bride of the Earl King because she's convinced him that the baby is the one with all the powers now, and he wants that child to be his because he wants the gold spun so that he can continue his hunts and continue his power. And then maybe there's something about getting back at death in the whole thing. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, I did like the story, but I also feel like
I say, I think this is one, upon reread, where I know where book 2 is going to go retelling wise, it'll hit different.
Maybe.
Because my gut says from here she's going to go King Midas.
Which could be interesting.
Because, again, you can have Rumpelstiltskin peek his head around and give the King Midas gift to Midas and play it out that way.
Yeah, that could be a fun play on everything. Because the next one's called Cursed?
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely going to have something to do with Gild's ability. Even though nobody remembers how he got it, even though the story that Serilda is telling has pretty much laid out how all of that fell into place, even though none of the characters remember, except for probably the Earl King.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't know that part of the story.
Right.
So, it's the next book is definitely going to be the downfall of the Earl King in some way, and as you're saying, he might be Midas, which could be fun play. But yeah, it was a flatter
that could be
book.
fun to play because then essentially at some point you're going to have to take down Midas as well, because Midas will have too much wealth and too much power.
Well, and didn't Midas take down himself in the story?
Yeah, he pretty much did. Yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy kind of style.
Yeah. I wonder if it tells us.
Yeah, I haven't read the synopsis for it.
Ooh, we've got a cover for it now. The cover looks stunning. Oh, okay.
I'm a little slower at getting there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, see, I figured we'd be playing with the whole death and underworld kind of concept.
Uh-huh.
Which it looks like we're gonna be doing in an interesting way.
Yeah. And
Because
the art of this manor on the cover, because it's only going to be the 2 books.
Right.
So, it could go a couple of ways.
Right.
And I don't know, like, reading the description still doesn't give me enough on which retelling she wants to play with, but it looks like it's an extension of Rumplestiltskins.
Yeah, because we still have to find the Rumplestiltskin name. We haven't actually accomplished that part.
Right.
And I think all of that is definitely going to be wrapped up in the downfall of the Earl King. For sure. But I think we're going to bring some underworldness to this story. And depending on which story of the underworld we decide to play with and how to play with that.
Because there's a lot of different underworld stories you can play with. A lot of different takes on the underworld or afterlife or all those types of things. So I'm really interested to see her take on it at this point.
Yeah. Might judge this book a little differently once we have
book 2.
The
for
ending.
sure. Yeah.
But yes, I highly
right
recommend
now
the audio
I'm
book.
just kind of like in limbo. And I do think I will audio. Then I would listen to it again on audio and then probably do book 2 on audio if I enjoy it.
Yeah. The narrator is very good too.
Who is the narrator for this one?
That's a good question. I'm horrible at remembering the names.
It'll only take me a second. Hold on. Rebecca Solar.
Yes.
Oh, she did the Lunar Chronicles series as well, and Heartless. So she seems to do most of her stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because she knows.
Oh,
Meyer's
and she's
voice
the one who did Renegades, and I really liked the Renegades audio, which is Marissa Meyer's superhero series. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know I like that narrator now, so I'm much more likely to do that. So.
Good.
So, shall we discuss?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think I have anything else. Yes.
No, I kind of don't with this one. I feel like this is one best discussed once complete, rather than in the middle, because I'm just kind of left in limbo right now.
Right.
So, shall we discuss our next pick?
Yes.
So, we're going to a retelling that we haven't done too many of for this book club, but it is one of April's favorite stories.
Yep.
So, we're going to go with Darling Girl by Liz Michalski. This was an option for Book of the Month in May. So if you're a Book of the Month member, you can pick it up that way for $15 for this big, pretty hardback. This has been out for a minute, so you should be able to find it in your stores and probably your libraries. If not, I do believe audio is available as well. So, anyways, Peter Pan retelling! Yay!
Which could be good or bad.
It'll be good or it's going to be really crappy. I've heard pretty good things about this one so far, though.
Good, because I've struggled with Peter Pan retellings. There are very few that I actually like.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the little blurb at the top to kind of let you know the tone going in. In this beautiful reimagining of J.M. Barrie's classic, one woman must take on the infamous Peter Pan, who is not the innocent adventurer fairy tales make him out to be, to save her daughter's life. So, are we dealing with Wendy's mother? Holly Darling, granddaughter of Wendy. Yes, that Wendy. Set in modern times, she's running a skincare company. And her son, Jack, is happy and healthy. Until she gets a call that her daughter, Eden, who has been in a coma for nearly a decade, has gone missing from the estate where she's been long tucked away. So it looks like Pan's kidnapped, a darling child, and we're going after Pan. So it could be interesting. So it looks like it's going to be more inspired by Peter Pan and playing a little bit with the lore of Peter Pan. But I don't think it's going to be a straight up retelling. And I'm honestly okay with that. I think that works better for Peter Pan for me, where you're just kind of playing in Neverland and playing in that world and concept, rather than trying to retell Peter Pan, because it's hard to do that well.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many elements of
there are.
different
Oh, did
things.
you ever get around to reading The Never King like I told you?
I started it and I could not finish it.
I understand, though.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
It didn't go away I was appreciating, so I had to set that one
Yeah,
down.
I think it's that. I honestly feel like the second book was stronger for me in that series, and it's just going to be a trilogy, so
Okay.
I'll let you know once I finish.
Okay. Maybe depending
But
on how
it is-
things go.
That one is very adult, very sexual, so it's definitely not going to be for everybody.
Right.
But yeah, so we're going to go with Darling Girl. I think it'll give us something kind of like The Never King, but not as sexual, so I'm looking forward to it. I like playing with the not so young Peter Pan as a grown adult. I think I'll enjoy it much better.
Yes, and I do like that too. It's just I still need to retain that magical quality of the original story somewhere in the retelling or in the inspired by thing. I need both that dark and that light together.
Like I say, I think this is going to do better in that realm than The Never King. I mean, The Never King is still fun in its own way, but it's a different style of story than a lot of people like.
It plays more with that.
I would never have
side.
us read The Never King for this book club. I'll put it that way. Like, my steamy romance friends, I'll go read it with them, and that's totally fine. Because they'll love it. But yes, I'm still very much looking forward to Darling Girl. Like, the second I saw that as an option, I'm like, ooh, tell it again. Let's go. So, yeah, I'm very, very excited.
Yes,
so that'll be the last week of June.
Right, which is the 26th?
26th. That should be
26th.
fun. That's my brother's birthday, so we might have to tweak that if he's done something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's totally fine. But it'll be over on Shae's channel. So subscribe to her so that you can be part of the conversation, because like I said, this is one of my favorite retellings, so there are probably going to be lots of words, either good or bad.
I'm probably going to take lots of notes on that one as well, just because I think it's going to be an interesting discussion, if anything.
Yeah. So with that, I think that is all. Hope to see all of you guys back with us next month. Of course, like I said, over on Shae's channel. Otherwise, feel free to subscribe to my channel if you're not. And you're just
you should
here by
subscribe to her
accident.
channel. Anyway, I always get it backwards. I always try to do it opposite.
Yeah, sometimes I just do
anyway.
both fingers.
Right?
But I do hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. May you have lots of sunshiny, warm days, and I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.